Okay, so the second part of 5.6 and 5.7 is using zeros to write polynomial functions. So basically we're going to be given the answers and we're going to have to write the equations. So we're going to be working backwards. All right, this comes from section part F7. I can recognize the connection among zeros of a polynomial function, x-intercepts, and solutions of a polynomial equation. All right, a couple definitions we need to know. The complex conjugates theorem. If f is a polynomial function with real coefficients and a plus bi is an imaginary zero of f, then a minus bi is also a zero of f. All right, so they don't need to give you the conjugate as a solution. If they give you one of these, all right, we need to know that the other one is also going to be a zero. So it's never just going to be one, you'll always have two, whether they give it to you or not. Okay, same thing works for irrational conjugates. So suppose f is a polynomial function with rational coefficients and a and b are rational numbers such that the square root of b is irrational. If a plus the square root of b is a zero, then a minus the square root of b is also a zero. So again, if they give you one, you always have to write the other. All right, so we are going to write a polynomial function of the least degree that has rational coefficients, a lead coefficient of 1, and the given zeros. Okay, so let's take a look at our example here. All right, they give us answers of 2, -4, and 5. So these are the easy problems when they give you all real numbers. Okay, so they give us x equals 2. So we're going to be working backwards here. All right, if they give us x equals 2, then we know x minus 2 had to have been one of the factors. All right, if they give us -4, then we know x plus 4 was one of the factors. And again, if they give us 5, we know that x minus 5 is one of the factors. All right, because if we were given any of these three things, we would set this equal to 0 and we would get 2. We would get this, set this equal to 0 and we would get -4. And we would set this equal to 0 and we would get 5. All right, so now we're just working backwards. So in order to get the equation, we would have to multiply this out, which we've already done. So it's really just a review. All right, so first I'm going to go ahead and FOIL. So I get x squared, then plus 4x, then minus 2x, and then minus 8. All right, clean this up a little bit, and then we're going to multiply it to x minus 5. So I'm going to write the x minus 5 first. So then I have x squared plus 2x minus 8. I just collected those like terms. All right, let's go ahead and distribute this x throughout. So x times x squared is x cubed. Then x times 2x is plus 2x squared. And x times -8 is a -8x. Then we're going to do the same thing with -5. So -5 times x squared is a -5x squared. -5 times 2x is a -10x. And -5 times -8 is a +40. All right, so our answer has to be written as f of x equals, and then we're just going to collect our like terms here. So we have the x cubed, we have 2 minus 5 is a -3x squared, then we have -8 minus 10x is a -18x, and plus 40. So that is my answer. Again, that's the easy one when they give you all real numbers. Okay, next example, they give you 2, and then they give you -2 minus 5i. So remember what we talked about in the first page. If they give you one of these, you always have to write the conjugate. The conjugate is also a 0. So the conjugate is -2 plus 5i. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at what that's going to look like as our factors. If we start with the 2 over here, then we have x minus 2, switch the sign. All right, then if we look at our second factor, we have -2 minus 5i, so that's going to be x minus a -2 minus 5i. That's another factor. And then our third factor is this one. So again, x minus a -2 plus 5i. All right, so what we can do here is we can go ahead and multiply those three out. All right, do we really want to do that? Probably not. That's going to take a very long time. But if you wanted to and you forgot the shortcut, that's what you would have to do. All right, but here's the shortcut. All right, first step, you're going to look at the real solution. Okay, so the 2 is our real part of this. So we know that that is x minus 2. We talked about that in the first example. All right, number 2, you're going to add the conjugates together. All right, so we have negative 2 minus 5i, and then plus the negative 2 plus 5i. All right, so I'm also going to write an x squared here because we know that there are two conjugates. So we have our x squared. All right, if we go ahead and add here, negative 2 minus 2 is a negative 4, and then negative 5i plus 5i is just 0. So this is going to be our x term. Now the first piece here, you're going to switch the sign. So I'm going to write that down just so you remember. Switch sign. All right, so if we have negative 4, this is going to be plus 4x. All right, and then the third step is to multiply the conjugates. So we have negative 2 minus 5i, and then we have negative 2 plus 5i. Okay, so if we go ahead and multiply, we know that conjugates, we can multiply the first and last terms. So negative 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. Then we have last terms. Negative 5i times positive 5i is a negative 5i squared. All right, we know that I squared is a negative 1. So we have negative 4 minus 5 times negative 1. Oh, sorry, that should be 25 because 5 times 5 is 25. All right, so this gives us negative 4 plus 25. Oops, sorry. This is a positive, which gives us 29. All right, so let me just talk you through that again. Sorry about that. Okay, so if we are multiplying, we're going to multiply first terms. Negative 2 times negative 2 is a positive 4. Negative 5i and a positive 5i, so negative 5 times 5 is a negative 25. And then I times I is I squared. Okay, so now we get 4 minus 25 times negative 1, which was the I squared, which is 4 plus 25, which is 29. Okay? All right, so hopefully you caught that. All right, so now the 29 goes here. So we have plus 29, and this is going to be the same sign. Okay, so whatever that one is, you keep it. Don't switch it. All right, so now our answer is going to come with step 4, and we're going to multiply x minus 2 and x squared plus 4x plus 29. All right, I went ahead and ran out of room, so I'm going to go ahead and add another step here so you could see that. Okay, so you should have been on the last page, but I needed a new page. I ran out of room. All right, so again, we are multiplying that real solution that we got and then the numbers that we got from the shortcut. Okay, so this is always x squared. This is adding the conjugates, switching the sign, and this is multiplying the conjugates. Don't switch the sign. All right, this is a lot easier to multiply than multiplying 3 of those pieces out. All right, so let's go ahead and multiply. So x times x squared is x cubed. Then x times 4x is a positive 4x squared. And then x times 29 is a positive 29x. Okay, now multiplying the negative 2, we get negative 2x squared. Then we get a negative 8x, and then we get a negative 58. Okay, so my answer, don't forget it has to say f of x. All right, is equal to y cubed, then plus 2x squared, then plus 21x, and minus 58. And that's our answer. Okay, I should have said this about the first problem, but notice how many answers did we have? We had 3 solutions. So you can always double check to make sure you did this correctly. You should have an x cubed because you had 3 solutions. And the same worked for example 1. All right, let's take a look at one more. All right, so next example we have 4, and we have the square root of 5. So remember, square root of 5, we can write the conjugate of that, which is negative square root of 5. Remember, conjugates are always 1 plus and 1 minus. All right, so we're just going to do this the shortcut way. So number 1, we look at the real piece, which is x minus 4. All right, number 2, we're going to add the conjugates. So square root of 5 minus the square root of 5 is 0. And remember, that's the middle term. So since there's 2, it's always x squared. And then minus 0x, you don't have to write that, but just to know that we have our 3 terms. All right, and again, I just switched the sign just so you get used to that. All right, now we're multiplying the square root of 5 times negative square root of 5. So positive times a negative is a negative, and square root of 5 times square root of 5 is just 5. Okay, and that goes at the end. Now that sign stays the same. You don't switch it. Okay, the only sign that gets switched is the second one. All right, so step 4, we're just going to multiply our x minus 4, and then we're going to multiply x squared minus 5. No need to write the 0x, because anything times 0 is just 0. All right, so this will be a nice easy one. We're just going to FOIL this. So x times x squared is x cubed. X times negative 5 is negative 5x. Negative 4 times x squared is a negative 4x squared. And then we get positive 20 at the end. Now make sure that you write f of x, and make sure you write it in descending order. So x cubed minus 4x squared minus 5x plus 20 is our answer. All right, again, we had 3 solutions, so you should see an x cubed, which we do. Okay, so here are your 2 problems that you are going to try. The first one is like example 1, and the second one is like example 2. Just remember that if you have this 2 plus I, you also need the conjugate, and then you're going to apply the shortcut. All right, we are going to practice more of this tomorrow, so see what you can do with these 2 problems. Look back at example 1 and example 2 if you get stuck.